John Talks, episode 13, driving Lyft in Compton and incremental growth. Yeah, you heard that right. I just got back from driving Lyft in Compton for the first time. That was a trip, literally and figuratively. I picked up this chick, Yana, and she lived in Compton. So it was time for me to make my trip to Compton. And obviously, growing up as a LA suburban white kid, Compton means two things. One, Dr. Dre, and two, uh, don't drive in there after night because it's too wild. and and, you know, be careful and just being honest. So tonight was, yeah, let's go. I'm still white mainly, and it was time to go driving to Compton at night. And so, granted, I'm 49. I've traveled like 30 something countries and lived all over the place. And, yeah, been all kinds of places. And I've been to Camden, New Jersey. So those of you who know about Camden, it's no picnic. Or if it is a picnic, you better be careful there too. So I was like, oh, all right, okay, fine. It's finally time to roll in Compton at night. And so I was like, okay, I was thinking to myself, like, dude, it's probably just gonna be like any other normal place because I've already driven a ton around South Central, and like Inglewood's actually pretty nice except for a couple spots, and like Baldwin Hills is super nice, and Torrance is nice, and this is like whatever. Hawthorne is nice. So it's like they all have they have their pockets, but they're mainly like it's not that big a deal. And then so I was like, whatever, John, like maybe you're just being like a little racist internally, or like a little, or if you're not being racist, you're just being like a little, overprotective, like a little safety safe, even though, I'm an ex-army officer, so probably not. Anyway, so I was like, okay, dude, just be centered about this. Like, let's see what happens. Let's see what goes down. You're probably just like overblowing it. So rolling down the freeways, get off the 105, rolling to Compton, rolling to Compton, like an early 90s, like beat up SUV, does a illegal left turn / donut in front of me, and it does a hit and run on another older SUV, like right in front of me. And so a hit and run right in front of me, does a donut, rolls through. The girl in the back says something to the effect of like, "Oh, it's just like they're always doing that." I was like, "All right, that's fine, I guess." So they roll through, and then another third car rolls in later, probably about a few seconds after, and like hits the brakes right in front of us and scans us like a feeling I felt before, like, oh yeah, maybe we'll shoot you. Like there's a certain gaze that people give if they're considering using a firearm, and that doesn't necessarily mean they have to have the weapon in their hand, but like they'll look at you like, yeah, I could kill you, like I could shoot you. And like that guy gave me one of those like off the bat. So within like 5 seconds of entering the city limits of Compton, hit and run, two illegal looking vehicles going, like doing illegal traffic maneuvers right in front of me, and then a third vehicle swinging by and like grim reapering me to be like, yeah, dude, I'm scanning you. And I was like, all right, welcome to Compton. And then we start rolling through, and then some crazy lowrider, it was like a night, like late 80s, early 90s, like Monte Carlo with like Dayton's and stuff on it. For those of you who don't know, it was like fancy rims. Yeah, they roll up and like cut me off and like do some shit. And then, yeah, I keep rolling through. And then another car rolled up and scanned me like, uh, like fire, like as previously referencing like a firearms like weapons free scan of like, oh yeah, it's like, is this somebody I need to shoot? Yeah, for the record, I have been shot at before. when I was a senior in high school in San Jose. I was second semester senior year, and I had been accepted to West Point, and I was working my after school job at Chuck E. Cheese. Got off like 9:30, kind of late, and was like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm gonna go 7-Eleven and get myself a Snapple and a payday. So I do, and then I hop in the car. It was a Nissan Sentra, and I hop in the car and I'm driving to go home with my Snapple and my it was like kiwi strawberry Snapple and a payday, and I'm driving home, and I'm literally a block away from my house in front of a Castillero High School in Almaden Valley, if you're from the area. And coming in my direction from the other way was a lowrider, like an Oldsmobile or a Buick, like a late 80s Buick or Oldsmobile. And as we're approaching each other, I see a rifle barrel come out of the back window. And right as we cross, they're headed towards me. Right as we cross, a muzzle flash goes off and the window behind me explodes. And the guy had shot to try to kill me. Missed me. I mean, given like the traffic speed and everything, like it was just a split second off, like 0.1. It was like 0.1 second, maybe 0.2 second off. If he had pulled the trigger 0.1 second earlier, it would have blown my head off. Because where it went through the window was like dead level with my head, so he had the aim right. Cops came, looked at it, basically didn't do anything. This was in San Jose. And I was like, yeah, what are you going to do? It was like 4 Mexican dudes in a late 80s lowrider or late 80s Buick in San Jose, which, a lot of people at that time fit the description. So they were like, yeah, there's not much we can do about this. But I did see the piece of glass that the bullet went through, and it was a 22 caliber bullet that went through it. So, yeah. So I've been shot at before, so I know what the vibe is. And that's not the first time, and that's not the only time that I've had a gun pulled on me. I've had multiple guns pulled on me and pointed in my face this life. So basically, like, I know I have a calibration for sort of the dispensation of lethality, and that's aside from my West Point training, which puts me in charge of it and like puts me from neutral to lethal. So, but I've had it done to me at least three different times out in the wild, and so I know. So when somebody's looking at me with the gaze of they're scanning me and they're seeing me as a target and they're determining whether or not they want to kill me, I know what that feels like. And so that happened. Yeah. So at least 2 different cars in my short time in Compton scanned me in that manner within the first like 3 minutes of being in the city limits. So at that point I said, oh yeah, John, referencing my inner monologue earlier to myself of like, oh, am I being like a little prejudiced or like a little bit touchy-feely about rolling into Compton? Am I being, maybe even am I being a little racist? Like, no, it turns out I was being 100% accurate with the intelligence available. And Compton is sketchy. Compton is definitely sketchy and wild and illegal. And that was just Tuesday night. And there wasn't even particularly anything going on, and it wasn't even particularly late. It was like 9. So I can only imagine how it gets in there, like on like 11 p.m. to like 4 in the morning, especially like on a Friday night or like a full moon night. It probably gets real rough in there, and it didn't feel like. You can tell when you go to certain areas, or at least I can. If the law is regularly broken in an area, there's a vibe in the air. You can feel the structures, or at least I can feel the structures in the air. And then there are places where when the law, you can feel I can feel when the law is regularly broken or just not enforced at all. Obviously, Compton is on the side of minimal legal enforcement, and a a lot of laws also being broken. So yeah, so probably gonna decline any ride offers in the Compton again. I'd say it's not a good match for me. I don't think they have to worry about me being taking over the rideshare market in Compton anytime soon. So, not that and not that there aren't plenty. Most of the people are, I'm sure they're awesome people, but definitely got some dudes on the loose in there. Yeah. So incremental growth. So how's it tie into this? So incremental growth is what allowed me to go ahead and be able to roll in there tonight and do what I was doing and get a real read, which is cool. I couldn't have done it when I began. I had the opportunity to. I didn't want to, just because the vibe check didn't work out, and now I know why. But incremental growth, I mean, in a way, it's like it's almost redundant, but here's the thing: incremental growth is such an important concept that I feel like I have a moral obligation to talk about it or speak about it. And I'll put it this way: so when I got to West Point, first semester, almost they pick almost all your classes for you. You have very few electives while you're at West Point. And for those of you who didn't go to college, elective is a class you get to select, as opposed to high school where pretty much all the classes are selected for you. At West Point, you have most of your classes are still selected for you, and amongst those classes, they're all very difficult. I need to stress that most of the freshman year classes at West Point are comparable to most master's degree programs in other colleges. And I calibrated that. Like one time I came home from break and my buddy who was going to UCLA gave me his chemistry test, and I looked at it and I said, that's not bad for a pop. That's not bad for a pop quiz. And he said, that was my semester final. And then I knew that we were not receiving the same education. So they select most of your courses, and they're very difficult. And not only are they difficult, but you're doing military training and physical training and other trainings, aside from just the academic training. But the academic load alone is on par with or more difficult than Ivy League academics. And that's before we even get the other training involved. So when you're looking at your curriculum, you're hoping for a soft spot, like, oh, I'm good at that subject, so that you don't die. And most of us took AP Calculus our senior year before we got there. I certainly had taken AP Calculus. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, at least first semester, my math class should be calculus. Like at least I already know calculus. So I won't fail. You're like looking for wins here. And that's where West Point pulls a little trick on us. And you don't get to take calculus your first semester. You get to take a math language they made up. And that math language, excuse me, that math language is called DDS. And DDS stands for Discrete Dynamic Systems. Now, discrete dynamic systems are systems that model incremental growth. And probably like the easiest way to describe a model that, like one that models incremental growth, is just any equation plus a variable where the variable equals any positive integer, right? I think integer, right? Because integers include decimals. Like whatever positive number, it's your base function plus any like positive number. And I'm forgetting if it's integer or natural number, which includes like the decimals, 0.00001, like whatever, like however far out you want it to be like one, right? And that's just the concept of modeling incremental growth. And whatever the original function is that you're adding the number to, is the thing that you're describing. And the thing that you're describing can be anything. It can be business, it can be a human being, it can be literally anything that you can mathematically describe. So whatever that first part of the equation is, like whatever that function is that it's describing, is the thing that's being added to. And then the thing that's being added to, you can have an equation, you likely have equations that are going to articulate what that growth is as well. So the important thing is that, and I didn't realize this till years later, is that getting your mind into growth mindset takes it out of zero-sum mindset. And zero-sum mindset is the mindset that there's a finite amount of resources and everything reduces to zero. Like everything, it's like there's only so many pieces of the pie, and everybody wants a piece. And that's what most, that's a obvious mental construct for inevitable conflict, essentially. And so I just thought it was important, and I saw that it was important later in life. Here we were at a military academy, and the first math language they were teaching us was one that modeled incremental growth and not one that promoted destruction or resource scarcity. And it was a language they had made up, which was really good. And so as I went through life, the incremental growth model was in my mind. And then I would encounter things like Fibonacci sequence and golden ratios, and then see the expansion of the universe, and then realize like, oh, it is incremental growth. And the key to incremental growth is that you have a base that you're operating from, and then you're adding to it. But the key is just to add to it. It doesn't matter what the unit of time is. It doesn't matter how much you're adding. The important part of it, and what qualifies it as incremental growth, is just that it grows. And as long as a person keeps that in mind about any single thing, like you put it into your core, and then you keep it in mind occasionally, at least, to keep you on course when you're doing something, anything, then you can model it. And then you don't have to, a lot of life's disappointments or life's expectations are based on spectacular swings or like explosive growth, like the hope for explosive growth, right? Like to be in a position of, desperation to going to a position of euphoria, or going from poor to rich, like instantly, like, like these extreme growth models. But the truth is that although there are certainly cases for accelerated or explosive growth in the universe and in the world and in life, the vast preponderance of it is incremental growth. And that's important to know, because then that provides the blueprint to go through life, understanding and tempering expectations in terms of growth, understanding that, pretty much anything we associate with moving along in life is growth. Growing our understanding, growing our compassion, our emotional ability, intellectual ability, spiritual ability, supernatural ability, like all these different things that we can grow are grown incrementally. Now, there is a cool thing called synergy, and let's say you're growing a bunch of different talents. Let's say a human being is a collection of a bunch of different talents and you're growing them. Some of those things that we're hoping for out of growth or change of position or whatever actually do naturally get catalyzed through synergy, and synergy of your own talents, synergy of your own abilities, and then also synergy between person and the environment. And that's important to know too. And so you don't have to put all your eggs in like the one growth basket, which is unhealthy, of course. But what's also healthy is to know that it's an operating principle in the universe. And that's why I was bringing up the Fibonacci and the golden mean earlier, was because they're demonstrations of a design that encompasses and incorporates incremental growth. They're really just, growth blueprints. And the same with the flower of life. The flower of life is the primordial growth pattern. Like it's the one. It's like that is God's fingerprint. That is God's blueprint, is the flower of life. And every culture everywhere has come to that conclusion. Like once you drill down into all of it, they basically go, there you go. There's the flower of life. And then, you get a few degrees out and it's the Vescus piscis or whatever it's called. And that's also the fish that Jesus' followers were also drawing. They ascribe two different meanings to that. One is the age of Pisces, and then the Pisces Vexius or whatever. I know I'm blowing that, but that's a part of one of the early replications of the flower of life. Because basically, flower of life, where I'm coming from is that. So imagine Big Bang, and the very first moment that the sphere of matter comes into the void, appears in the void. Like, for one, that's God. Like, when we go, where's God? What is God? God is that. It's the first moment that the cosmic egg appeared in the first frame of creation. Like, that's God. And God always exists in that moment. Like, God still is existing in that moment, because that moment is technically outside of time and space, because time and space don't kick off until he starts replicating himself. And the way he starts replicating himself is from that sphere, from that orb, that iridescent orb, to start shooting out in all directions. It's the flower of life. The flower of life is the 2D depiction of that multidimensional sphere propagating itself in all directions and beginning the clock, beginning what we know as time and space. Because then as it starts to move in the directions, the physical motion starts to create time and space. And that's a different discussion. But it's all incremental growth. And that is the baseline of reality. The base of reality is this cosmic egg propagating itself in all the different directions in the pattern of the circle of flower of life, which, creates all the galaxies, creates all the worlds, creates all the different layers of the Maya, the material reality, incrementally. And anything that we do, because we've been created out of it and in it, and we're in it now, anything that we do in it is also incrementally adding to the growth of it. And here's the kicker. There's no way to destroy it. That's why the destruction path is it's kind of a juvenile lesson. You can't, it's true. Second law of thermodynamics, it's true. You can't create it or destroy it. Except on the creation side, you can bring in sublimated energy, in the quantum field, the unified field, the God field, the energy field that is the layer that all this material reality is on. In our position, we can transduce energy from that dimension and turn it into matter in this dimension. So in the overall creation sense, it's still just a repackaging. Second law still applies, but it looks like a magic trick because you're taking energy from another dimension and making something new in this dimension. So it looks like there's a net positive. Although when you look at it in toto, there's not a net positive. It's still just transforming. But there is synergy and the energy gets going. Now the energy is like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, so yeah, so whatever. Yeah, don't, you can destroy some stuff or whatever, but it's disharmonious. Like whether or not like they think it like dispels energy or whatever they think it does, it certainly doesn't make for a better time for everybody. So, and it does, and it contributes to like the growth of things because it adds to history, it adds to folklore. People talk about it. It's a whole thing. It's a whole interconnected dance. So incremental growth, definitely worthwhile. It prepares you for things, and it's mainly the way the things go. So being aware of it can keep you from basically like going insane or getting depressed because you're thinking you should have a lot more, and like the growth rates just don't match up to what you're trying to make it be, which is classic disappointment. And whatever you do, yeah, don't do late night driving in Compton. I recommend against it. That would be my thing. I mean, just to recap that one: drove in the city limits, hit and run, scanned by probably like 3 different cars, in assessing whether they wanted to shoot me or not style, and then just generally whack vibes. So, half of one, six of one, half dozen of the other type thing. But in this case, it's don't drive in Compton after dark. You're better off. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good one.